Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Bugay. First, this hour, the latest developments from Ukraine. The Parliament has declared the Euromaidan protests of 2013-2014 the event of historic significance for Ukraine. 295 MPs supported this decision, making it the official position of the Verkhovna Rada. The document also states the necessity of commemoration of those who died during shootings 7 years ago. The People's Deputies emphasize the importance of investigation of the Maidan cases and bringing those responsible for deaths in the center of Kyiv to responsibility. A thousand more Ukrainians recovered from COVID-19 than fell ill. Over the past day, 4,286 new cases of coronavirus were registered, but almost 6,000 people have overcome the disease. Most cases are in Ivano-Frankivsk, Chernivtsi, Vinnytsia, Transcarpathian regions and in the capital. Meanwhile, Deputy Minister of Health noted that the filming of an educational series for medical workers will start soon. It will contain answers to the most common questions about the work of the electronic healthcare system.
They will contain answers to the most common questions about the operation of the electronic healthcare system. As of today, all the issues have been worked out, formed, the production is ready. That is why the first day of filming officially starts today. The videos will be launched in public, and they can always be found on our pages in social networks, on YouTube and especially on the portal DIA, Digital Education, in the section Educational Series.
The timely delivery of the vaccine to Ukraine was hampered by technical problems. The promised start of the vaccination on February 15th is postponed at least until the end of this week. The Minister of Health of Ukraine explained the delay in deliveries. There are some technical and bureaucratic nuances that do not depend on the Ukrainian side. Maxim Stepanov assumes that vaccination is about to begin in the coming days.
We were supposed to start vaccination this week, starting on February the 15th. But there were some difficulties of a logistical and of a bureaucratic nature. I can confidently say that we will start vaccination in February. But most likely it will be either the end of this week or the beginning of the following week.
The adaptive quarantine in Ukraine will be extended from February 22nd till April 30th. Prime Minister noted that the number of quarantine zones will remain the same. The country will again have green, yellow, orange and red zones. However, the approach to the division of regions into these zones will be changed. In May, in Ukraine, the government had introduced adaptive quarantine and zoning. Those restrictions lasted for 6 months. The division of regions into 4 zones will depend on the epidemiological situation there. Russian security forces raided the houses of 7 Crimean Tatars. Searches took place in several cities of the occupied Crimea at once. 6 people were detained. Among them are activists who took part in rallies and protests. Representatives of the occupation structures are illegally detaining Crimean Tatars in Raman prison in Simferopol. They are charged with participation in the Hizbut Tahrir organization banned in Russia. According to human rights activists, lawyers are working with the detainees. Earlier, during searches, the security forces denied lawyers access to clients. When the detained as well as their relatives told the Federal Security Services workers they wanted to call the lawyers, the officers said that the detained did have a right for lawyers, but no one would call them. That is a clear violation of rights. As practice shows, dozens of criminal cases against Crimean Tatars have been already framed up in Crimea. The corresponding article of the Criminal Code foresees 15 to 20 years of imprisonment. After the detentions, the Prosecutor's Office of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea opened proceedings under 2 articles of the Criminal Code of Ukraine: illegal imprisonment and violation of the inviolability of whom the permanent representation of the President of Ukraine in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea called the actions of Russian security officials a war crime. The gas prices and the anti-corruption system in Ukraine. Those were the top discussed topics during the work of the IMF mission in the country. This year it took place online and lasted almost 2 months. However, no agreements were reached on a new tranche, but the IMF said they are ready to continue the dialogue. Why the fundamental questions for the fund are also important for Ukraine, and whether the country's economy is able to survive without IMF's tranches, our correspondents figured out.
Finding balance between the interests of Ukrainians and requirements of the International Monetary Fund. It's the main thing for successful cooperation with the IMF. This was stated by Chairman of the Financial Committee of the Parliament, Danilo Hetmantsev. According to him, one of the controversial issues is the forced regulation of gas prices for the population by the Cabinet of Ministers. After all, the fund wants the prices for energy resources to be set by the market. A fixed price for gas is a deviation from market conditions, and we understand that. But this is the question of the balance between the interests of our people and the interests of building a free market. We cannot build a free market in such a way. That is why the government took such a compromise decision. That is a deviation from market conditions, but this measure is temporary. Another issue that prevented the IMF mission from making a positive decision on the new tranche was the problem with the anti-corruption infrastructure. The situation developed after the scandalous decision of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. On October the 27th, it removed some of the powers of the National Agency for the Prevention of Corruption and cancelled the punishment for false declaration. The Parliament has already renewed some anti-corruption norms, but solution of the problem requires more time, representatives of the Office of the President of Ukraine say. This issue is absolutely solvable. Moreover, the head of state, President Zelensky, constantly monitors that the legislative process is ensured. By the way, the Verkhovna Rada has already received several bills signed by the President, which relate to the moments of restoring the anti-corruption structure. The National Bank of Ukraine explains that the work with the IMF continues between missions. The fund constantly monitors the decisions taken in the country. The program of cooperation with the International Monetary Fund, which we signed in 2020, has a number of key tasks that Ukraine should fulfill first. That is, the so-called structural reforms. We should elaborate a European-style judicial, tax, customs and law enforcement systems in Ukraine. The Ukrainian side expects the new IMF mission to be able to start working in Ukraine in the middle of the year. We need to follow the situation now. It is better, of course, to receive this tranche before September. The IMF is a very important strategic partner. It is a marker for many investors. But the IMF itself is not enough to develop the country. Everything should be done at the same time. A program with the IMF, investments with other countries and home investments are necessary as well. According to Ukrainian top officials and experts, even if the IMF doesn't provide Ukraine with a single tranche by the end of the year, it would not cause significant problems for the country's economy. We will be able to live without the IMF. Moreover, all Ukraine's obligations will be fulfilled. Commitments made to creditors to repay the debt will also be fulfilled. We have enough foreign exchange reserves worth more than $29 billion. We have the stable national currency as well as macro-financial stability. And undoubtedly, the International Monetary Fund's tranche will make things easier. The International Monetary Fund approved a standby program for Ukraine in summer of 2020. It will continue for 18 months and will involve lending in the amount of about $5 billion. The first tranche, more than $2 billion, has already been allocated. Another $3 billion could come to Ukraine already this year. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Kruchkova, UATV News.
The position of the United States on Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline remains unchanged. This was stated by the White House Press Secretary Jennifer Psaki the day before Western media reported that the United States and Germany had begun negotiations on the future of the gas pipeline and that Germany expects to persuade the United States to withdraw its sanctions against Nord Stream 2 However, Saki noted that the United States does not exclude the possibility of new sanctions.
Well, our position on Nord Stream 2 has been very clear and it remains unchanged. President Biden has made clear that Nord Stream 2 is a bad deal. It's a bad deal because it divides Europe, it exposes Ukraine and Central Europe to Russian manipulation, and because it goes against Europe's own stated energy and security goals.
A kilogram of garbage per day is produced by an average Ukrainian. Launching waste processing is one of the important tasks for the Ukrainian authorities. Soon they are likely to ban the use of disposable plastic. While this decision is being discussed, parliamentarians plan to consider a draft law on waste management tools. Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine spoke about the new bill during the Ukraine 30 Forum.
Bill number 22071 has been registered. It has passed the first reading and is being prepared for the second one, and this law actually provides new regulatory instruments. First, it is a market law that is designed to implement the 98th Market Waste Management Directive. There are a lot of principles. The principle of extended producer responsibility, a waste hierarchy is being introduced, and all areas are being regulated in the same way as in all European countries.
Had a drink and drove the car. Get ready to pay a $610 fine. The Ukrainian parliament has toughened the liability for drunk driving. Our correspondent knows how the law enforcement will punish for driving under influence.
More than 168,000 accidents in 2020, and almost 5,000 accidents occurred due to drunk drivers, the law enforcement informs. But many of those responsible for the accidents managed to avoid responsibility because of the outdated legislation. The outdated legal mechanisms, Soviet mechanisms, that are currently in the code should be eliminated. Those are the transfer of the case to the labor collective for consideration or closure of the case because of insignificance. There are hundreds of cases now. The courts study them and hand over to violators' workplace. And what do they do there? The director or the chief accountant simply ask him to stop drinking before driving. In order to prevent violators from avoiding punishment, MPs have voted to enforce the drunk driving liability. The bill was supported by all factions. 325 votes for. The decision is approved. From now on, driving under influence in Ukraine will be fined $610. Previously, the sum was $360. In addition, the violator will be deprived of a driver's license for a year. In case of a repeated violation within a year, the fine will make $1,210. The license will be taken away for up to 3 years, and the car will be confiscated, with the possibility of returning it for money.
The task is to isolate a person who allows himself to drive under influence from other road users. Let me remind you that half of the victims are pedestrians. The first cause of death for young people under 25 is traffic accidents. This is a big problem for Ukraine.
If a driver breaks the law 3 times in 1 year, he will be deprived of his license for 10 years. The car will be confiscated and a fine of $1,820 will be imposed. The more the fine, the better for road users, because driving under influence is unacceptable. It could lead to terrible and tragic consequences. If we talk about responsibility, we should seek to pass it from administrative to criminal. It would no longer be necessary to pay fines, but to receive a real sentence. If people died due to the fault of a drunk driver, then the culprit faces imprisonment for a term of 5 to 12 years and up to 10 years ban on driving. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Artem Holub, UATV News.
That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube and Facebook pages.